Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. There's a lot to cover, almost like a little bit too much. There's been so much happening it's really weird, this space, over 24 hours. How much can actually take place? For those of you not looking at the screen, the price predictions are everywhere. You already know why. It is anticipation of the halving, the ETFs, the ABCs, and the 1, 2, 3s, and just where altcoins can go. Typically, historically, we see that or have seen that. While Bitcoin may do a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10x in price, altcoins sometimes tend to actually do like thousands of percent for increases. It's very weird, but it's just the way that the market works. A lot of people are talking about where XRP's price is going to go. This is mainly because of the news of new partnerships, new companies who are buying up tons of XRP. We had that in the news yesterday as well. Speculation as to who's buying what and how much that they're buying and all this other stuff that's floating around out there. It says expert eyes a 1,500% rally as a signal from the past. A lot of people are talking, the idea of a $10 XRP seems as obvious as like clouds in the sky at this point to a lot of people. What people are really focusing on now is a $15 XRP, a $20 XRP. I'm seeing discussions of a $30 XRP during the bull run based off of pent-up interest from the last bull run where they were undergoing the lawsuit and therefore could not move up as much. What's the other one? There was the other guy. I don't know if I had it in the video. There was someone who was saying, well, if the previous price was half of 1 cent and then it went to $3.84, well, therefore, if we have that same amount of price movement, I think that gets us to was it like a $220 XRP or something like that? So people are aiming very, very high when it comes to this coin for the next bull run. It says analyst predicts a 9,150% Cardano price swing to $30. Here's the timeline. This was actually also very popular news. It is relatively rare that we actually get Cardano price predictions. We tend to get a lot of Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and maybe some other random coin floating around out there. But Cardano is kind of rare to actually see one. The normal numbers that I'm seeing out there for Cardano are, of course, $10. The previous all-time high was, I think, also $360 or $355 or something along those lines. I've seen a couple $15, depending on where you look. For some reason, this was very popular, but the timeline is completely askewed. This person thinks that we could potentially see a $30 ADA by the year 2032, which doesn't make a lot of logical sense as far as price-wise and the actual activity around the coin and where, the generalized idea is that we tend to, now this is not a future prediction. This is not financial advice. This is simply what we've seen before in the past. Prices tend to at least do typically a 5 to 10x normally from their previous all-time high. It can even be argued that we may only see a 4 to 5x, which would roughly get us around a $12 to $15 ADA during the next upcycle. There are other factors many times, and we do see them, and we will see them for a number of altcoins, where the expectation is that it could only have a 5 to 10x in price. However, we will see a 20x, a 25x, a 30x in some particular altcoins. We do not know which ones. It always happens as the bull run is taking place, which would logically then probably get us to a $30 Cardano during the 2028 halving. But what have you. The idea of $30 next to ADA made very popular news simply because I assume a lot of people want to see a $30 ADA. Also in the news, a 2,700% Bitcoin price explosion is incoming, courtesy of one catalyst. I'm not sure what planet everyone else is living on, but I've been on Earth for a while. And I say that because there are a lot of articles floating around where people are now claiming that the price movements that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks have had nothing to do with the Bitcoin ETF, which I find a little bit delusional in many different ways, because it is abundantly clear. We have, for the better part of around 2 years, nearly only received good news about the cryptocurrency space. I'm not talking about Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm not talking about FTX, Alameda, Genesis. I'm not talking about, what do you call it? Terra Luna Classic. These are people who did things within the space. As far as metrics for these coins and who's using them and who's accumulating them and how much money's flowing through them and how nearly all chains except for one haven't broken, haven't had problems. These metrics are fantastic. Seeing the amount of Bitcoin being taken off of exchanges, being self-custodied, which we're also going to go over because this news is very weird, has been great. Regardless of all the news that we have received, Bitcoin's price continued to decline for the better half of 1.5 to 2 years, regardless of what news we got, regardless of how many companies were buying that we actually knew about. These are the companies who actually at some point in public, or the countries, told us they were mining and or accumulating Bitcoin. So on the news that a ticker symbol appeared on a website, Bitcoin rose by $7,000. So to think otherwise is completely delusional. However, Arthur Hayes is once again back in the news. He is very popular for his price predictions that usually do not come true. He's been predicting prices for a long time. If you look back at my videos from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, you get the generalized idea. He's been predicting prices for a while, and he's usually always very far off. He's been a $1 million Bitcoin predictor for a long while, which will only make him seem like an oracle. In the year 2040, when we have $1 million+ Bitcoin, people will go, he knew before. And it's like, no, we will logically get there if price increases continue the way that they have over the last couple of years. However, this one is a little bit different. BitMEX co-founder Arthur Hayes is doubling down on a prediction that Bitcoin is destined to reach a 7-figure price. Hayes says that monetary policy, known as the yield curve control, or the YCC, will act as a catalyst for Bitcoin to reach $1 million, a gain of around 2,738% from the current level. There are a lot of people within the cryptocurrency space, and I'll try to say this nicely. Years ago, when Andreas Antonopoulos was kind of like one of the main, if not the only figurehead for Bitcoin's price, he did not like talking about Bitcoin's price. He thought it was redundant. He was like, just simply buy the Bitcoin and hold on to it and you will see magic happen. But people used to always ask him, what would catalyst be for the actual movements up in price? And the main idea was basically inflation. As more people saw their currency devalued, these people would simply begin to realize that they should have gotten Bitcoin. And then slowly but surely, everyone would move into this brand new system. Bitcoin's price would rise organically. And as we see that there are less price fluctuations now for Bitcoin than there were around 10 years ago, like daily 14% swings, he says this happens because as more people get into the network and the price rises higher, the more stable, air quotes, that it actually becomes. So at some point when we would hit a $1 million Bitcoin, the price fluctuations would maybe be by a couple of $100s or a couple of $1,000s per day relative to the millions. Therefore, it would be a stable currency in that manner. A lot of the new age people within the cryptocurrency space kind of do this very light fear-mongering thing where they continuously tell you, and I just had something like this on Twitter as well. There are a lot of people and other YouTubers as well who will continuously tell you over the course of years that a crash is imminent. Things are going to fall. Things will collapse. Things are going to drop. Stock market will crash. The stock market will collapse. We will have a depression, recession, depression. And it keeps going on and on and on. The housing market's going to crash. And these are the same people who tell you these things over and over and over, regardless of the metrics showing that prices are actually only increasing. It's like the idea for the other channel that I was telling you all about before on the channel Money Rules. I made a video where I was showing you the same people who've continuously said over and over that the housing market was going to crash, was going to go down. It is believed that these people were actually buying up houses as the interest rates were rising, and they told you not to get into the market so that they could buy at a lower price. Not saying that Arthur Hayes is doing this, but you understand there's this kind of like doom and gloom idea that this yield is going to rise, this is going to fall, this is going to become a catalyst, people will do this, this will no longer be a thing, the US dollar is going to collapse. It's this like, look at some finance YouTubers if you get a chance, and look at some of their video titles and go back years. You'll see they keep posting the same things over and over about like the end of the world is ending, the prices are falling, this is sowing. But they never actually do. And if we do have a moment, like in the beginning of 2020, where things did fall, they keep that momentum to keep you believing that prices are going to once again fall. This is why it's very important that that guy, what's this guy's name? The guy from The Big Short, who it's based on, why I made that other video where I was showing all of you that he's been saying this since 2012. It makes you very popular if you continue talking about the when prices are going to collapse and when things are going to end, but you don't know. This guy put down $1.5 billion that it was going to happen. He says it's generally absolute nonsense. Central banks use the yield curve control to influence the long-term interest rate level by buying long-term bonds as much as possible to prevent the rate from rising above the intended target. According to Hayes, the entire U.S. government is enabling a loose monetary policy environment, even as the Federal Reserve is tightening. The generalized idea, as he's saying, is that he expects the U.S. dollar to implode. He thinks that the U.S.'s monetary policy is going to cause the U.S. dollar is not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't know who I just made really sad, and I'm so glad that we get a lot less BRICS news. BRICS, the idea that these countries who have terrible economic policies are somehow going to join together and hold hands and usurp the US dollar. It's not, they've been trying since 1992. It's not going to happen. The US dollar is incredibly strong, regardless how much they actually print out there. This was very popular today. I only have one tab open because I don't think you needed 9 tabs to show you another Arthur Hayes prediction of Bitcoin going to $1 million. I think Bitcoin myself will eventually hit $1 million, and I think it's going to be based on about 38 other factors and not simply, oh no, the US dollar is collapsing. If you look at not even the news, just economic news and economic policies and what's happening around the world and the amount of countries, I mean, who have over 50, 60, 70% inflation, we've seen the news that these people are moving into Bitcoin. That will cause a catalyst for Bitcoin's price to rise and also less Bitcoin being on the market. You get the generalized idea. Forbes has reported a potential XRP bull run and a $1 million Bitcoin price. People are using the current event in the news, you know which one I'm talking about, as a way to terrify other people into believing that everything is going to collapse and therefore they need to buy Bitcoin. A lot of the people who have gotten into the cryptocurrency space, these are the new age gold holders. So the way that a lot of gold YouTubers and gold people work is that they see an event on TV, they tell you, their friend, see, I told you it was going to happen, and then they tell you to buy gold. It's this really... watch out, because the news is about to get really weird. Like I saw this, I thought it was a joke, and then I realized, I was like, no, it can't be a joke. Like there's no way to joke about that. We are seeing a rapid decline in the world of cryptocurrencies. This isn't meant to scare you. This is simply the truth. The idea of Bitcoin is something quite phenomenal. I can't remember the name of the actual thing. It's like it's some type of event where you are trying to coordinate with other people, but you don't know if you can trust them. I can't remember what it's called. It's something like the Trojan horse, the Russian something, I don't know what it's called. The idea is basically that on a field, you're trying to communicate with other people, but you're trying to also make sure that they're also saying and having the exact same information at you at the exact same time. But there's no way to logically coordinate this. So this is why we see a lot of discourse when it comes to misinformation and things moving around. The idea of a blockchain completely solves this, because on the blockchain, if I write down something on the chain, the information is automatically shared with everyone else around the world. So there is no way for me to fake the information or for you to say that you didn't receive the information that I gave you. It's there on the chain. We can all kind of see it. The idea of Bitcoin is meant for us to get away, explicitly meant for us to get away from the old system. I've been telling you for a while, the idea of banks and institutions getting into the space may benefit us price-wise, but in the long term, we are once again just allowing the people who have destroyed the world to once again redestroy the new economic system, which is Bitcoin. The idea of rehypothecation, or banks being able to say that they have what they don't have, is something that is actually legal in nearly every single country for banks. The idea being, you know how, remember earlier this year and last year when we had the discussions of like a bank run on the bank? You know why a bank run is scary for the bank? Because they never actually hold how much that they say that they have. Never. Like it's just not a thing for any bank. So for every dollar that they have, in essence, they would be able to say that they have $100, if not 1,000 or 10,000, because at no point are they expecting people to run to the bank to try and take their cash out. It's the same exact thing as to why we're seeing an increase in like digital payments, because you more than likely, if you are tapping or swiping your card and tapping your card, if you're going online for online payments, there's a very low chance now of you being like, I need my money from the bank, and you running to the bank to go get physical cash. You would simply hoard it in a digital manner or try to move your money on screen in some sort of other way, which is also fine because you're still not actually moving the money that you have. You're moving a representation in numbers of the stuff that you have. Bitcoin was created because of the 2008-2009 market crash that we saw. That literally we were on the cusp. We were at the edge of the cliff as far as like world economic collapse because of these people who did everything that they can to make sure that they got richer regardless of who else was actually in the way. Michael Saylor has been very popular in the cryptocurrency space for a while. And this is why I said when I saw this news, I was like, no, of course he would say this. Of course. The idea is for us to get away from the banks. When we hear about Bitcoin's price moving because of Gary Gensler rumors is actually disgusting. Bitcoin, when I first got into the market, moved off of actual economic news. The US dollar's not looking too hot, Bitcoin would go up. This bank is not allowing their people in this country access to their money. Bitcoin would rise by 12% that day because people around the world began to buy, and also in that country. It was fairly logical because it's the point of Bitcoin. As more wealthy people have gotten into the space and they do not care about economic freedom or sovereignty or anything that would allow you to live a better economic life, we've seen Bitcoin reacting far more similar to stocks. This was our problem back in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, and therefore I even say a portion of this year as well. Where stocks have moved, Bitcoin has also moved as well. If stocks are having a bad day, Bitcoin also goes down. If we hear that the US is tightening their economic policies and things are like, Bitcoin should be inversely correlated in that this is why you're hearing from a lot of people who've been in the space for a while. Remember the guy from Blockstream who said that Bitcoin should be over 100,000 just based off of its normal metrics. Of course, Bitcoin is being manipulated the same as every other coin. Don't sit there and think that your terrible altcoin is rising on its own, because it's not. Part of the problem from all of this is that we have a system. We don't need to go 40 years into the future. We don't need to go 100 years to be like, oh my gosh, I hope we get this thing. We have a system right now called Bitcoin that is available to everyone on the planet, regardless of where you are located. The way that the old system works still works. The way that it works is that if you are too poor, banks will not go to your country. They do not want you being a part of their economic system. They do not want to give you money. They don't want to give you a leg up. I'm trying to choose my words lightly because I'm also on the cusp of going on a rant, and they're very, very exhausting. The point is that banks are terrible. We should know that banks are terrible. And upon the news that we keep getting that banks are getting into the space, there's a reason why I always mention it in the videos. The idea is, and this is not financial advice, Bitcoin is made for you. Bitcoin is made for you and your family. The idea is, if Bitcoin were evenly spread out amongst everyone on the planet, we would all have 0.003 Bitcoin. It's roughly around 300,000 Satoshis. If Bitcoin were to hit a 1-to-1 parity with the US dollar Satoshi-wise, it basically means 300K for everyone in a world that would be deflationary, and therefore you would essentially become richer and richer every single year. When you hear that there are companies who are buying 15,000, 35,000 Bitcoin at one time, I show you in a video that this is happening to let you understand that they're basically taking what's yours, not in a, fist in the air revolution kind of way, but it's more of a pay attention to why they're so adamantly trying to buy as much as possible, why banks are getting into it, why institutions are getting into it. Like when you heard the word BlackRock was getting into Bitcoin, you should have known that Bitcoin's going to probably be around forever. However, the vast majority of people in a very exhausting and tired move weren't buying Bitcoin. I know that some of you were. I know that a lot of you do dollar cost averaging. Amazing. Like golf clap. Like I'm glad you're in it. But there's a reason why Bitcoin's price rose by $7,000 after we got the potential ETF news. It's because everyone was standing on the sidelines simply waiting, allowing these other people to buy up all the Bitcoin. We know that now 92, nearly 93% of all the Bitcoin is basically owned by wealthy people. We have not even gotten to the next halving. We haven't gotten to the 2028 halving. The last Bitcoin is supposed to be mined in the year 2140. Think of how wealthy and rich these people are going to be. Anyway, Michael Saylor recently predicted that he's foreseeing a 10x surge in Bitcoin's price, literally like during the next bull run. He's expecting a $250,000, $300,000 bull run. He was recently at some event. He was on CNBC where he spoke about the future of Bitcoin. And this is something that everyone should have a problem with. This was the only website I saw talking about this. The only website, because so many people are so ready to once again relinquish control of their finances to the same exact people who destroyed our system multiple times. Like this isn't the first, like 2008, 2009 wasn't the only crisis. To relinquish their control once again back to these people for the sake of profit. Then the system collapses one more time. And then everyone goes, but how? I don't understand it. MicroStrategy Executive Chairman Michael Saylor recently spoke on CNBC on Thursday about the future of regulation and corporate adoption for Bitcoin. Shortly after his company, he recently announced that they bought even more Bitcoin. They do this all the time. We'll talk about that some other time. While the billionaire maintained that you can never have too much Bitcoin, he claimed that big banks will be necessary for the asset to reach full maturity. He said he believes that the banks are going to be the only way that Bitcoin can actually rise up in value. He thinks that the banks should actually control most, if not all, of the cryptocurrency space to make Bitcoin more adult. Do you see the problem? Do you see exactly everything that I was just telling you? If you know that the devil has horns and you've been pierced by them multiple times, why would you run back down this? You have new friends. You have brand new friends, and they're called Bitcoin and Ethereum and blockchain. Why would you make sure that you run back to the devil so that he can pierce you one more time? We know that banks are terrible. I think we can all agree on that. This isn't a tinfoil hat thing. This isn't something that is only known within the cryptocurrency space. We know these people are criminals, like outright. We've seen them fined thousands of times across multiple countries, depending on how uncorrupt your country might be as far as like actually persecuting these people. We've seen the fines of $45 million against them. We've seen them constantly doing wrong. We've seen them during depositions basically say like, yeah, we knew we were destroying stuff, but we were trying to make more money. We know that they're terrible. So the idea that this person would sit on stage and basically say like, you know, Bitcoin had a good run. Now it's time to give the banks Bitcoin so that we can make sure that Bitcoin actually succeeds. Bitcoin will succeed regardless. It might take us another 20 years. Why are people so desperate to always side with the bad guy? And I see this so much more in the cryptocurrency space. It's this literal idea you would sell your soul for $1. Think of what it is. We have a new system that is separate from the other system, that has succeeded on its own. The idea of these companies and these institutions and these banks entering the space is great for prices, but we would get there organically with 8 billion people alone realizing that the old system is trash. This is why it's very important when you see the metrics that there are tens of thousands of new Bitcoin addresses happening every single day, and they're all buying fragments of Bitcoin around the world. It's so that everyone, the normal people, have it. Bitcoin is not for billionaires. And I dare even say Bitcoin is not for mega millionaires. It's not for them to succeed. It's not for them to buy Lambos. It's not for them to buy up all the land and all the homes. It's for everyone else to be able to profit as Bitcoin grows and gets stronger. During his interview, Saylor acknowledged some of the recent failings of crypto and the industry's largest firms. He basically said because of Sam Bankman-Fried, it's time for, the smaller players to go away and for banks to take control. Do you understand how disgusting this actually is and why I'm shocked that this was the only website talking about this? The idea that we should once again relinquish control to the people who destroyed our systems over and over. What do you think they would do with Bitcoin? One of the fears years ago that Andreas Antonopoulos tried to warn people about was the idea of, remember I told you that banks can basically have $1 and say that they have $1,000 or $10,000 based on, whatever they decide to do. One of the things he said is that the problem is that banks would essentially be able to do this with Bitcoin as well. And it's a very big problem. And this is why the idea of proof of reserves is so powerful and why it's disgusting that we only have 2 crypto exchanges who are willing to tell you if they're actually holding your money. So when you have a crypto exchange that says, look how much Bitcoin we have, look how much XRP we have, look how much Ether we have, look how much Terra Luna, look blah, 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 blah. You go, cool. They're not lying about how much they have. A bank, on the other hand, would only have 10 Bitcoin, but they'd be able to essentially say or loan out the equivalent of 10,000 Bitcoin at their whim, because this is how banks operate. It is basically based on debt and the idea that no one's going to run to get all their crypto out at the exact same time. And what happens is you basically inflate Bitcoin. So instead of there essentially only being ever 21 million Bitcoin, for every 1 Bitcoin that you have, if you can essentially loan out 100, it's the same exact idea for like gold certificates. If you have, Banks also do this as well. If you have a piece of gold, you give out gold certificates to say, hey, yeah, like this also represents one piece of gold, and whenever you want it back, come back to us. But they're not expecting everyone to try and get their gold at the exact same time. So essentially for Bitcoin, the idea would be they would essentially be able to, in essence, make around 210 million Bitcoin or 2.1 billion Bitcoin because they inflate the amount of Bitcoin that should actually be out there. It's really fascinating. And this is why I think it's such a shame that a lot of the earlier teachers within the space have basically disappeared. I assume that they saw what was going on with a lot of the space and have kind of like disappeared, or maybe they're working on their own thing just exclusively on Bitcoin now. But yeah, basically he blamed Sam Bankman-Fried and everything that's been going on, saying that it's time for banks. He said, and I quote, "For the industry to migrate to the next level, we need to migrate to adult supervision. He said, we're going to need big banks to become the crypto custodians. We're going to need Wall Street to take a role." Right. So I know this only means something to around 5 people out there, as a lot of other people just only have greed in their hearts. But understand, a lot of people also had greed in their hearts in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, when they bought into all the nonsense, and then the banks once again proved everyone correct and destroyed everything around the world. It's very fascinating, the market that we're in, and how the word's not delusion, is like a really disgusting distortion of where we previously were before and how bad things can actually get. I think the world already is incredibly dystopian. I mean, incredibly dystopian in nearly every single way. I'm reading a book. I don't have it near me. It might be called Plutocrats. It's basically, it's really funny. This book came out, I believe, 2013, 14, 15. I forgot exactly when it came out. It's basically a book about this woman who is kind of like in larger financial circles. She hangs out with these people. She knows some world leaders and like other economic policies around the world. Like she's been present for them in the room as they were talked about or what have you. And she was saying back in 2010 and 2011, 2012, as she was writing the book, she was like, people don't realize exactly how much rich people own. If normal people understood exactly how wealthy these people were, we would probably have people rising their fists into the air and screaming revolution outside very, very rapidly. She talks about the movement of money and how these people basically own everything, and they create the illusion that other people can also own this money as well. So this is why a lot of times you see other YouTubers basically saying like, hey, here's how you can make $100 million. Unless you have the money and the capital and the force and the know-how and also the group of friends who can get you there, it's going to take you a long time to actually make it to $100 million, or unless you get very lucky in the cryptocurrency space. And she explains how this accumulation happens right in front of our eyes. And it's fascinating to see that 10 years later, I'm reading the book, 10 years after it was released, to see this same exact thing happening over again in the cryptocurrency space. Someone releases something that is a literal free-for-all. It's available for everyone on the planet to be able to get. We have 7 to 8 years of hard propaganda from banks and institutions who told us not to buy. We should not get into this market. Bitcoin's terrible and horrible. They buy up all the stuff that they told us was terrible and horrible. During bull runs, we know that they have this asset that they told us not to get into. We see the price predictions that they have. We see them talking about how much richer it's going to make them. And still people don't pay attention because we have the illusion that gold is the better option. Stocks are the better option. You gotta either buy or don't buy real estate. You gotta be super excited about the market and also terrified about it about the exact same time. The US dollar is going to collapse. The US dollar is not going to collapse. It's all this other noise on the in-between. You get what yeah. It's very, very exhausting. Sorry. It's very exhausting. And all I can hope is this is like a true hope of mine. If you've been here for a while, you know the purpose of the channel. It's to give you the information to kind of hopefully that you walk in the right direction when it comes to how you're investing within the cryptocurrency space. Because all I can really hope is that you profit from it in some sort of way. I had hoped years ago that more people would watch the channel or try to like want information like this, but so much of it is just around hype, just around quick movements. I've seen the other crypto YouTubers beginning to like respawn from hell once again, where they're just telling you to like, you know, you need this much money to be able to buy a Lambo, and they're making all these really weird videos about collapses and stuff like that. But we have completely turned a corner as far as like Bitcoin is for everyone. To be able to willingly say and stand on a stage that we need banks to take over the space so that everyone else can profit is complete nonsense. These people will only destroy the market as they have destroyed everything else. And then we'll be right back at square one trying to figure out a brand new system where we can get away from the banks. It's really, the word slimy doesn't, it's crazy that no one else is talking about this. And the fact is, even if this had been the most popular news story of the day, of the week, of the month, the day after, everyone would forget about it and simply not care. Because everyone's so desperate to make a buck, you would allow these people to destroy the system just so that you can say that you profited. Very, very weird. Yeah, I do hope in some way that you have all enjoyed. I hope you got something from it. I know my videos can be a bit intense. I saw people asking me why I'm not as cheery as I used to be, because the world is ridiculous right now. Like why would I sit here and have a fake persona where I'm trying to be happy when all this stuff is happening? Like, we're talking about like real world money and implications of all these things that are happening. I'm not here to like fluff you up and like make you feel happy about what's going on. No, I'm giving you like the real news so you can make like hard decisions as to where you want to put your money, what you think is going to happen in the future. The world is really messed up right now, and we need like some kind of clarity when it comes to all this stuff that's currently taking place. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and or supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.